Good evening, dear friends. Today we'll have a talk on one of the contemporary issues of international relations, that is environment. Environment as an issue in international relations uh, had been a very big factor from the middle of 1970s. From the time when a good number of negotiations were being entered into for the sake of environment, and environment was being recognized as a very big factor in the developmental alternatives that the nation states had. So from the 1970s onwards, environment became an issue in international relations. The primary reason as to why the environmental variable entered into foreign policy agendas of a good number of countries was primarily because of the fact that the present model of economic and technological development involved a high level of integration, and it led to complex interdependence between the nations. Parallelly, the nation states continued to be guided by their national interests. Therefore, two apparently opposing factors began to influence the international relations from the middle of 1970s. The fact of interdependence, and also the fact of countries pursuing their national interests. Now, two of these factors became very prominent, and at the same time, from 1970s onwards, there has been a very increasing role of multinational corporations, and multinational corporations have at times assumed the status of such powerful entities who could, in fact, act independent of the control of their nation states. They began to have interests that spread across national boundaries, and they were growing more and more unaccountable. They were having their um, production units at one place, units which produce spares at another place, assembly units at another place, back-end services were being performed in other countries. The complex interdependence and the global interests and business activities spread across nations of the multinational corporations began to make them very independent and unaccountable. Okay. Furthermore, that the issue of global commons, global commons include those uh, assets or those resources of the entire humanity which are not under the control or which are not under the command of any particular nation states. The environment is a part of global common. High seas is a part of global common. High seas are described as neutral waters. It means all the nation states have um, rights over such high seas. Okay. Outer space is a global common, and Antarctica is a global common. So these are resources which are beyond the legitimate right of any particular nation state. These are called as global commons. The entire humanity has rights over these global commons. Environment is a part of global common. Okay. So the developmental model that the world had adopted, okay, had very serious implications for global commons, but that did not receive appropriate attention. Okay. Also, from the 19 late from the middle of 1970s, there has been a role, an exceptional role, on the rise of transnational actors. Intergovernmental organizations, international non-governmental organizations, then the transnational corporations, multinational corporations, other. Okay, all of them have begun to play a very big role in international relations. Now, these factors have made global environment as an issue in international relations. Okay, the reality of uh, the the negative fallout of the developmental model began to dawn on the nation states, and also it was realized increasingly that managing environment is a very complex task. Okay, and this has got a very very strong potential for the generation of conflict between nation states. The management of environment requires coordination of a lot of actors. There are too many players. Nation states are there, multinational corporations are there, intergovernmental bodies are there. So there are too many players in international relations whose actions and whose policies have to be coordinated for protection of a global common like environment. So this was how the issue of environment began to, you know, impact international politics. The issue of environment began to uh, make its uh, effect felt on the policymakers of a good number of countries, right? So starting from 1970, even in India also, environment began to attract attention of our political leaders from the middle of 1970s. It was from the fourth five-year plan onwards. Environment became an important variable of planning. Okay, environmental impact, environmental degradation came into the attention of our policymakers starting from the fourth five-year plan. Now, there were a good number of reasons as to why the global environmental management had become a very complex issue. The first reason is that the action of one country within its borders affects environmental quality, affects the access of benefits of healthy environment, and also access to resources of other countries. Okay, obviously, environmental degradation knows no borders. We all know that, isn't it? So actions of one nation state within its borders has implications for other nation states in the quality of its environment. That it means that a nation state which is legitimately exercising its sovereign right in taking its decision on adopting a development model can have impact for other country. Okay, so that makes the environmental issue slightly complex. First reason. Secondly, you also know that the impact on environment, is usually very diffuse. It cannot be very particularly identified. It's not very conspicuous. The effect tends to be diffused, and effect also tends to be spread over a very long time. Okay, therefore, the kind of environmental impact of an action today might have implications over several years or even after decades also. Therefore, the diffuse nature of environmental impact as well as the long term effect makes environment not a very serious variable in the opinion of the policymakers. And thirdly, as we discussed a little earlier, the reason for complexity in global environmental management is because of the presence of a large number of actors. Fourthly, you know that usually countries are not so very responsible and not so very sensitive to environmental impact, primarily because of the fact that a particular action can have impact across several other nations or even sometimes across continents also. Okay, the impact of the discharge of industrial pollutants in the atmosphere in the East European countries has led to acid rains in the Scandinavian countries. Therefore, the tendency of environmental effect spreading across the borders of nation states tend to make the countries irresponsible. Okay, now the last reason as to why environmental management is a very very complex issue is primarily because of a dilemma called the collective goods dilemma. Okay, now as I told you, the the environment is a part of the global asset, isn't it? It's a part of the property of the entire humanity. It doesn't belong to a single nation state. Now these are what are called as collective goods, okay, or they're called as global commons. Okay. Now please remember, the protection of global commons requires development of a collective value or a shared value. Okay. So all the nation states should develop a collective consciousness about the need to protect our environment. Okay, but the efforts obviously require to be taken at individual level, isn't it? So every individual nation state requires to contribute the way it can for protection of global environment. So protection of environment is a shared value of the entire humanity. Okay, so there should be the development of a collective consciousness on the need to protect environment, but the costs have to be borne by nation states individually. Okay, therefore it requires a collective action which sometimes requires the nation states to transcend their narrow interests. Okay, so countries might have to do their part. Countries might have to sacrifice their narrow national interests for the sake of protecting a global common. For that, we require the development of a global consciousness. This is what's called as the tragedy of commons. Okay, now this has been called as the tragedy of commons by Garrett Hardin. He says that the protection of global commons requires development of a shared value, but this requires actions which should transcend national interests. Okay, so for everybody, every nation state should try to give up its narrow interest. Now that's going to be very very difficult, isn't it? And that's considered to be a dilemma of collective goods or global commons. Okay, now you know that over a period of time, through several negotiations and through several efforts, several principles related to environmental negotiations have developed. Okay, several principles which are now considered to be acceptable by a good number of countries, at least majority of the countries. Okay, principles related to global negotiations. Now there are some principles which have been accepted. The first principle is that environment is a collective good, it's a global common. Okay, but the responsibility for protecting environment is differentiated. Okay, though it's a global common, a collective good, the responsibility is differentiated primarily because of the fact that there were a good number of countries which have reaped benefit, you know, individually in terms of material prosperity or economic or technological development by adversely affecting environment, and there were other countries who have not availed any form of economic or technological development, and therefore their impact on environment is not too drastic, okay, or too telling. So they were a group of countries who have had a strong impact on environment adversely and have gained individually by in the form of higher economic and technological growth. And there were other countries who have had their environment still in a pristine manner, but who have not been developed, who have not been able to develop economically or advance themselves technologically. So there are two different groups of nations. Okay, that's the reason why there is one fundamental principle that the responsibility for protecting environment should be differentiated. Okay, there are some countries who have been culprits in environmental degradation and who have availed the benefit of such of their action, and there were others who have not degraded the environment and who have not availed the benefits of economic or technological advancement. Therefore, there are two different groups of nations. Therefore, the first principle insists on the fact that though environment is a collective good, the responsibility to protect environment is differentiated responsibility. Okay, there are some northern countries who are well off, who are technologically and industrially advanced, and who have a greater responsibility to protect the environment because of their impact on environmental degradation, their impact of environmental degradation. The southern countries, on the other hand, have not indulged in such kind of practices or economic activities which have degraded environment in a very big way. Therefore, the responsibility to protect environment is differentiated. Okay. Now, second important principle related to environment is that the South's responsibility to protect environment, okay, will have to coincide with its developmental priorities. Now, please remember that the southern countries, which are underdeveloped, which are technologically very much behind the northern countries, cannot give up on their developmental priorities. The southern countries should not be asked to sacrifice their developmental priorities. So southern countries have every right to develop. Okay, they can take up every endeavor, every effort to develop. However, their developmental efforts and developmental priorities should coincide with environmental protection. It means that the southern states should in future adopt such developmental models which coincides with environmental protection. Okay, therefore protection of environment should be a part and parcel of their economic development model. Okay, so environmental variable should be incorporated into their development model. Okay, so this is something called as sustainable development. So this should be the responsibility of the South. So that's the second principle that's accepted today. Now, North, on the other hand, has to support the southern nations in addressing their issues related to poverty or hunger or underdevelopment as a necessary condition or a necessary step to protect environment. Okay, so as a part of their contribution for protection of environment, the North should support the South, okay, in addressing their poverty or hunger or underdevelopment or technological obsolescence and such other issues. Therefore, the responsibility is now shared. Okay, the responsibility is now both that of northern countries as well as that of the southern countries. Okay, and fourth important principle is that developmental model should be sustainable. Okay, so today it's almost a mantra, isn't it? Sustainable development is almost a mantra for each and every country. Okay, so even the developed countries also today seek to ensure that the environmental impact is properly assessed and environmental impact is kept at minimum. Okay, so they also have incorporated environmental variable into their development models, and so also have the southern countries. Now you know that for the first time the concept of sustainable development had been brought to the forefront by the Brundtland report of 1983. Okay, and the report called as, or the report titled as, Our Common Future. Okay, in that they insisted on adopting sustainable development practices. Okay, they also insisted on principles, important principles like equality and environmental justice. Okay, now environmental justice and equity principle indicates that the benefits of um, environmental protection as well as the burden or the cost of projects for protecting environment should be evenly distributed. Okay, it means some countries should not enjoy um, benefits of uh, environment while other countries bear the burden of protecting the environment. Okay, so the benefits of environment should be shared equally by all the nations, and the cost or burden of protecting the environment also should be shared by all the nations equally. Now this is what's called as environmental justice. Okay, so these are the two important principles that have been propagated in the Brundtland report. Okay, one is the concept of environmental justice and the principle of equity. Okay, so these were the principles that have been put forward or propagated in the Brundtland report. Also, the Brundtland report had propagated the idea of historical responsibility. It means that whatever is the state of environment that we see today, okay, is primarily an outcome of the actions of several nations over decades through history. Okay, so all the actions of the nation states over a period of time which has played havoc on the environment should own the responsibility to protect the environment, should own up the responsibility. Now this is what's called as historical responsibility. This is another concept that was put forth by the Brundtland Commission. Therefore, the Brundtland Commission had propagated views like that developmental models should be sustainable, and the principles of equity and principles of environment justice should be incorporated so that the responsibilities and benefits are shared equally. And thirdly, the countries who have been culprits in environmental degradation should own their responsibility. This is the principle of historical responsibility. Okay, now we know that another very important principle related to environmental negotiations is the principle of polluter pays. Okay, now this principle seeks to establish that all those countries which are the major polluters should own up responsibility and should start paying for restoration of environment. Okay, now this is called as the principle of polluter pays. Okay, now we know that there are a good number of countries that are differing on interpretation of this principle. Okay, for example, America says that the principle of polluter pays should be applied to those countries which are indulging in environmental pollution as of today. Okay, while a good number of third world countries want to ensure that the principle of historical responsibility is adopted. Okay, so there is a difference of opinion on what should be the way this principle should be implemented. And also the principle of multi-stakeholders responsibility has been given importance in the Earth Summit of 1992. The Earth Summit that took place in 1992 at Rio de Janeiro. Okay, it was the one which had put forth several principles of environment related to environmental negotiations. Now it says that approach should be a multi-stakeholders approach. It means that all those people who are stakeholders in protection of the environment should be included. Okay, it should not be what's called as an engagement of states or countries through their diplomatic channels indulging in environmental negotiations to come out with policies. It should be an approach which should include all those who are important actors and important stakeholders in protection of environment. So it should be a multi-stakeholder approach. Okay, so these were several principles that can be considered as fundamental principles in environmental negotiations in recent times. Okay, now we know that environment and politics related to environment became a major subject of international negotiations starting from 1970s actually. Okay, the Stockholm Convention. Okay, and after that throughout the 1980s, environmental variable became a very important subject matter of international politics. Energy crisis, oil spills, overexploitation in high seas, okay, or overfishing in high seas. Then nuclear accidents like the Chernobyl nuclear accident of 1983. All these factors have, excuse me, 1986, Chernobyl nuclear accident of 1986. All these factors have compelled nations to incorporate environment as uh, a major aspect in their negotiations, and it became a major aspect or major frame of reference of foreign policy also. Countries began to be uh, divided on their stands on environment. There were some countries who want the principle of polluter pays to be implemented. There are other countries who want some other principle to be adopted. There are some countries which support a legally bound agreement to compel nation states into compliance, and there were several other countries which propagate the view of voluntary controls and voluntary policy initiatives should be taken up by the nation states for protection of the environment. So the views are differing between the nation states. Okay. However, all the countries began to incorporate their policy related to environment as a part of their foreign policies in the way they conduct their international relations. Environment became a major issue. Okay, so the first UN conference on environment, on international environment at Stockholm in 1973 recognized or acknowledged rather, okay, on the fact that uh, environmental degradation has cross-border implications. Therefore, it becomes an international issue. Okay, it is no more a national issue. It is no more a local issue. It is an international issue. Now, this was the first conference in which the member states agreed that uh, any activity which is environmentally degrading has international implications, and therefore that should be made a part of international negotiations, and countries should be held responsible at the international level for any of their actions which are environmentally degrading. Okay, so this was the first acknowledgement, and from then onwards environment became part and parcel of international relations. Okay, it had become a part and parcel of negotiations between countries. Okay, and the Earth Summit of 1992 at Rio de Janeiro, it made sustainable development the theme of the future developmental models. So environment should be incorporated as an important variable of all developmental models, no matter what is the nature of the political system. Okay, so or the mode of production. Okay, so environment should be incorporated as an important variable, and all the countries should adopt sustainable development practices. Okay, so Agenda 21 was adopted, okay, which acknowledged the shared responsibility. Okay, and which also for the first time made countries enter into several conventions, like the Convention on Biodiversity and so forth, and a commission was appointed to monitor the compliance of nation states to their accepted principles. Okay, and however, that there were differences primarily because of the interpretation of various principles related to environmental management. Okay, and a good number of countries also began to accuse the emerging economies like India and China as major polluters who are not owning up their responsibilities. Okay, and several issues related to environment in global negotiations and became became quite significant, and one of them is global warming, okay, or climate change. Now we know that global warming probably has been the most contentious of all the environmental issues that have been discussed at the international fora. Okay, primarily the concept of global warming assumes so much of importance due to several reasons. We know that global warming is related to the greenhouse gases, right? So monitorable targets, okay, for reduction of greenhouse gases was one way through which we can control global warming. Okay, and what are the major issues related to addressing the problem of global warming at the international level? The first issue is the high cost of cutting down on greenhouse gases. Sometimes, for some countries, the level of their economic development and the level of energy consumption makes it very, very difficult for them to cut down on greenhouse gases without incurring huge costs. Okay, lack of viable alternatives, okay, makes these countries resort to only one way to cut down greenhouse gases, and that would be to reduce economic growth, okay, which is not acceptable to a good number of countries, okay. And the countries therefore are ready to stall, and the countries are ready to sometimes subvert the entire process of efforts to reduce global greenhouse gases. And secondly, another aspect which is related to the global warming is the presence of very strong lobbies within the developed countries or advanced countries which oppose the efforts to reduce global warming, okay. uh, Primarily because of their self-interest, for example, even in US also there is a strong lobby represented by multinational corporations and military industrial complexes as well, which put a huge amount of pressure on the administration to stall the efforts taken globally for reducing greenhouse gases, primarily because it's going to hurt their economic interests. Thirdly, um, you know that um, the reducing greenhouse gases leads to benefits which are global, but each member of the uh, international community will have to bear the costs individually, cutting down on greenhouse gases, adopting cleaner technologies, or improving forest cover, okay. So all those measures which are required to be taken up by the nation states are um, going to involve personal costs, therefore, though the benefits of reducing greenhouse gases and reducing global warming has uh, benefits which are global, the costs and the burden is to be borne or extracted at the individual level, okay. And this creates three dilemmas, my dear friends. Firstly, the existence of what are called as free riders. There are some countries which do not share the costs, but which might ultimately realize the benefits of reduced global greenhouse gases or reduced global warming. Okay, they are called as free riders. So those countries which have not shared the costs or shared the responsibility of reducing global greenhouse gases will also benefit. Okay, so other countries' sacrifices have bestowed benefits on those who have not shared the burdens or costs. These are called as free riders. So there are a good number of countries which want to be free riders. And secondly, you know that the reduction of greenhouse gases and reducing global warming involves short-term costs, though the profits or benefits are going to be accrued at a very long term. That's the reason why a good number of countries are not very much worried, because the kind of democratic systems that we create today create governments which only view from a very um, narrow time frame, okay. So the next general election, how to get popular mandate in your support, what are the popular measures, so these are the things which the nation states, the governments are more worried about, okay, rather than concentrating on those benefits which can accrue over a very long term, okay, but which are lasting and which are critical, right? Therefore, the short term costs associated with uh, global warming, for which benefits are only going to accrue over a very long time, discourages nation states to invest very heavily on these efforts. Thirdly, the good number of countries also express um, doubts about the benefits that could accrue, unpredictability of benefits, okay. So unpredictable benefits also discourage a good number of countries to engage wholeheartedly in the negotiations related to global warming, okay. Now Kyoto Protocol was one effort that took place, which involved a good number of countries, which provided that effort should be taken for reducing greenhouse gases to 5.2% of the 1990 levels. So specific reduction targets were fixed, and a mechanism was put in place so that the countries could have leverage in the form of carbon trading, through which carbon emissions can be traded with countries who are having deficits with other surplus countries, and also the clean development mechanism, through which certain developed countries or industrially or economically better off countries can invest in cleaner development projects in the third world countries, and thereby they can avail themselves of some carbon credits. So these were several initiatives that were launched to the Kyoto Protocol, and however, over a period of time, several dissatisfactions were expressed for extension of Kyoto Protocol, and therefore a good number of countries are now contemplating on withdrawing in further advancement of this Kyoto Protocol, which had expired in 2012, and several other aspects like the principle of polluter pays also has become very very contentious, and U.S. primarily objects to historical principle, and it wants to uh, implement the principle of polluter pays based on the present uh, pollution levels or emissions of countries, not on historically um, determined values. And secondly, US also wants the principle of what's called as bottom-up approach. There should not be an international agreement which is binding legally and which imposes conditions or restrictions on the nation states for implementation of definitely monitorable targets. Sometimes even compromising its own priorities. That should not be the way through which environmental efforts should be taken up. US supports voluntary principles. So each nation state should voluntarily declare its own strategy, should voluntarily take up its own responsibility, and should voluntarily adopt its own costs and its own financial burden to help realize environmental benefit. Okay, therefore the approach should be a bottom up approach. It should not be a top down model, implemented from the top through an internationally binding treaty. It should not be like that. All the nation states should voluntarily carve out their own strategies and design their own methods to protect environment, and committing themselves to their own financial um, commitments to overcome environmental problems. So this was the approach proposed by US. So US completely has a different approach to protection of environment, and other aspect related to other set of negotiations related to environmental protection, which have also assumed a lot of importance, is negotiations related to biodiversity. Biodiversity is the variety of life forms along with their habitat and their genome, together is called as biodiversity, right? They're all a part of an ecosystem, right? And ecosystems are complex primarily because of the difficulty in predicting the impact on ecosystems. So what are the actions of nation states and in what way those actions are going to impact ecosystems is very very difficult to predict. Okay, and ecosystems are also geographical units, spatial units, and sometimes ecosystems can cut across political boundaries also. Therefore, ecosystems and their management also has become a matter of international relations, my friends. And primarily because of the fact that a particular state action can impact an ecosystem balance, impacting the quality of environment in several other countries surrounding it. Why is it so? Because the ecosystem can extend to 3 or 4 countries also, and that's the reason why um, every state action is to be viewed in terms of the impact it has on an ecosystem, and that's the reason why biodiversity has also become an important element of international negotiations. Okay, now we know that the Earth Summit of 1992 resulted in a treaty called the Convention on Biodiversity for Protection of Habitats. Okay, and this treaty also recognized the differential responsibilities of the developed countries as well as the developing countries, and there are several other efforts at the international level to to control pollution. Okay, particularly pollution at the high seas, or dumping of hazardous wastes or nuclear wastes and so forth. A good number of countries have also adopted unilateral approaches, okay, which is also sometimes leading to conflicts as far as negotiations on environment at the international level are concerned. Okay, so this is a very brief talk about um, you know uh, environment and its impact on international relations. Now, what is important, my dear friends, is for you to keep this information in mind, okay, and update with whatever information that you're going to come across as a part of your current events. There might be several other agreements that might be made. There might be new issues which would be thrown up as contentious issues in environmental negotiations, or sometimes a summit or a meet can take place, okay, or a conference can take place. So anything that you can gather, you know, 3 or 4 more points which are of very relevant or recent importance, you know, if you can incorporate those 3 or 4 points into your answer in the examination, that will fetch you a good amount of marks. So this is about you know, um, environment and international relations. Thank you so much.